Hello friends, so we are continuing our series on studying PYQs, understanding PYQs, and through that skilling ourselves for the purpose of solving MCQs. Alright, today what we'll do is we'll look into the topic of constitutional amendment. So what we'll be doing is we will look at, first and foremost we'll look at the pointers that you have to take into mind while you read about constitutional amendment. Alright, and this focused reading will help you in choosing the right answer. So what are those topics? What are those pointers that you have to keep in mind while you study constitutional amendment? First and foremost, what is constitutional amendment? Constitutional amendment basically is changes that we bring to the constitution to make it relevant as per the socio-economic and political needs of the country. That is constitutional amendment. Okay, this is the definition of constitutional amendment, the changes that we bring in the constitution. All right. While studying constitutional amendment, my dear friends, these are the pointers that I want you to keep in mind. Question इसके बाहर नहीं आएगा, ठीक है? Question basically इसके बाहर नहीं आएगा. If you have a tap on these things, if you have knowledge of these things, question you will not basically falter in your answer. And one more thing, constitutional amendment, if you look into previous year's questions, na, every 1 to 2 years, in every 1 to 2 years there is a question on constitutional amendment. ठीक है, तो इट इज समथिंग लाइक कि वो गारंटी करता है आपको मार्क्स थोड़ा सा. और बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन अगर आपको पता हो, इफ यू हैव बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन ऑन द टॉपिक विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस पॉइंटर्स, आप उसमें सही आंसर सिलेक्ट कर लेंगे. सो व्हाट डू यू नीड टू नो? फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट, द वे यूपीएससी इज आस्किंग क्वेश्चन ना, वी प्रिज्यूम, वी एट जीएस कोर बेसिकली प्रिज्यूम देयर कैन बी एन इजी क्वेश्चन ऑन व्हाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट इज नेसेसरी. ठीक है, एंड यू डू नॉट हैव टू गो फार फॉर फाइंडिंग दिस आंसर, यू विल फाइंड इट इन एनसीईआरटी, ऑलराइट, और इवन इन द मोस्ट बेसिक बुक्स दैट यू रीड. व्हाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट इज नेसेसरी, आई हैव बेसिकली टोल्ड यू द आंसर एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ दिस सेशन itself, at the beginning of the discussion itself. Then the types of constitutional amendments that are provided in the Indian Constitution. What basically is termed as constitutional amendment? As constitutional amendment is every change in the constitution, called constitutional amendment? That is necessary to be known. वो necessary है, ध्यान में रखना. ठीक है, किस टाइप का change is defined as constitutional amendment and what are the types for it? ठीक है, when we speak about types ना, we have to also understand the different procedure. ठीक है, डिफरेंट प्रोसीजर. देखो, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस कैन बी चेंज्ड इन 3 ways. आउट ऑफ दिस 3 ways, 2 are constitutional amendments. 2 procedures are termed as constitutional amendment. But you have to know procedure with respect to all the 3 ways in which constitutional provisions can be changed. ठीक है, ये तीनों चीजें, तीनों प्रोसीजर्स आपको पता होनी चाहिए, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट यूपीएससी इज एक्सपेक्टिंग फ्रॉम यू. एंड माइंड यू, दिस इज द पॉइंटर which has provided most of the questions from the topic of constitutional amendment. Then what basically are the powers of parliament and what role the 2 houses of the parliament individually play. ठीक है, does any house have an upper hand with respect to constitutional amendment? वो हमें देखना पड़ेगा, वो देखना हमारी फिर जिम्मेदारी हो जाती है. ठीक है, अगेन this is the pointer through which questions have been coming. So first is procedure and second is powers of the house with respect to constitutional amendment. These are the 2 pointers जिसमें से सबसे ज्यादा क्वेश्चन आते हैं. Most of the time these 2 pointers are asked in combination. In multiple statements वाला क्वेश्चन ना, these 2 pointers are asked in combination. Procedure you have to know powers of parliament, individual house का power. ठीक है, Supreme Court's role with respect to constitutional amendment. Obviously here we are talking about judicial review. ठीक है, what can Supreme Court do once a constitutional amendment has been passed? All right, once the constitutional amendment has been passed, can it negate the constitutional amendment? If so, what is the requirement for it? On what basis the negation of constitutional amendment can happen? Then presidential veto, can president veto constitutional amendment? Up till now question has not been asked on it, but I presume, ठीक है, जिस तरह से questions are now diversified ना, a simple question on presidential veto might turn up. All right. Also, we may have this year a question on basic structure. Why I'm saying कि basic structure पे question आएगा? Basic structure पे question इसलिए आएगा because the Vice President of India recently commented on it, and that comment was circulated in newspapers. There was debate over the comment of Vice President. ठीक है? And basic structure basically, what is basic structure? It is basically a restraint on the Parliament's power of constitutional amendment. ठीक है? So I presume with respect to Parliament's power, a question on basic structure might come. All right, how basic structure basically restrains the power of the Parliament to amend the constitution, and also a simple question on what is basic structure. What is basic structure? Last but not the least, important amendments. Okay, important amendments. In important amendment, now you have to remember the most recent amendments. All the amendment, all 105 amendments are not necessary at all. Okay, all the amendments are basically not necessary. So the recent amendments have to be taken into consideration, and also what you have to do is, starting from amendment number 1, the crucial amendments which in a way had a great impact on Indian constitution, that you have to remember. So recent में I will say 105th is important. After that, the recent amendment that I will say is important is with respect to women's reservation in parliament and state legislative assemblies. तो वो याद रखना है, ठीक है? You will find it in yearly current affairs of GS score, है ना? Important amendments you do not have to run here and there. What we have done is we have created a fact file with respect to important amendments and stated the information which is required from prelims point of view in that particular document. Link of that document is available in the description section. Go through it. Go through it. It will secure your 2 marks. That is my word. It will secure your 2 marks. ठीक है? तो ये pointers याद रखना. What you can also do is you can basically make the list of these pointers. ठीक है? तो जब constitutional amendment पढ़ो तो ये pointers देखते हुए you can move ahead. Your focus will be on that particular point of information. Okay. So I will repeat for you what has to be covered in constitutional amendment. First, need of constitutional amendment. Second, types of amendments. Third, procedure required for amending the constitution. Fourth, powers of parliament. Here I say individual powers of both the houses. All right, with respect to amendment of the constitution. Supreme Court's role once the constitutional amendment has been passed. Presidential veto, if there is any presidential veto on constitutional amendment. Basic structure doctrine, because basic structure doctrine restrains the power of parliament with respect to amending the constitution. And in the end, important constitutional amendment which you will find in the fact files of GS score description, description में जिसका link दिया हुआ है, ठीक है? Link of which is provided in the description section. चलो, now let us go to questions and try to understand the psyche of UPSC. The first question is with respect to procedure. As I told you, na, most of the question, if you look into it, they are on procedures. So let us look at the first question. First question, consider the following statements. A bill amending the constitution requires a prior recommendation of President of India. Okay. Second statement, when a constitutional amendment bill is presented to the President of India, it is obligatory for the President of India to give his or her assent. This question is on veto power of the President, though they have not directly used the word veto. Sign करना है कि नहीं करना है, ठीक है? Sign करना है कि नहीं करना है, that is a veto power. That basically is veto power. Alright, so what do we see is veto power पे entire question has not been asked, but veto power पे a statement has been asked without using the term veto. And then the third statement is a constitutional amendment bill must be passed by both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha by a special majority, and there is no provision for joint sitting. Complete question is on procedure. All right, and it is one of the simplest questions. Obviously, we all know prior recommendation of president is required in case of creation of new state. All right, it is also required in case of money bill. ठीक है? Now with respect to state bill, na, where presidential recommendation is required, in with respect to bill of a state where presidential recommendation is necessary, that you will tell me in the comment section. ये बता देना, ठीक है? ये important question हो सकता है इस साल के लिए. ऑलराइट, ठीक है। तो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट इज रॉन्ग विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू सेकंड क्वेश्चन, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल and money bill does not have veto power, does not carry with itself the veto power. President therefore cannot use veto. ठीक है, तो साइन करना पड़ेगा महामहिम को with respect to constitutional amendment bill and also with respect to money bill. Remember this, remember this. And of course then we have the provision ki both houses have to pass this bill individually. Constitutional amendment bill has to be passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha individually with special majority. ठीक है, there is no question of joint sitting. तो third statement is also right. First statement is wrong, second and third statement is correct. Our answer will be B. कोई स्पेशल नॉलेज लगा इसके लिए नहीं. Only what is required, simple procedure मालूम करना, simple procedure मालूम करना. Most of the students will falter on the first statement. While they will falter, the reason they will falter is they will start overthinking. ठीक है, they will start overthinking. They will think if President of India, basically President of India is basically symbol of both union and states, right? And hence if a power of state is compromised by constitutional amendment, obviously it may happen that president's recommendation may be required. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, जो तुमने पढ़ा है ना वही है. whatever you have basically read in your basic books, that is the ultimate knowledge required to clear prelims. Don't overthink, settle down in your knowledge. All right, even in the second case now, don't overthink. Just because president of India पे there is no time boundation with respect to when he has to give assent to constitutional amendment bill, तो ये मत assume करना कि he has pocket veto over it. Constitutional amendment मतलब no veto. Constitutional amendment मतलब no veto. बस बात खत्म. Constitutional amendment and money bill no veto. बात खत्म हो गई. Don't overthink. Don't overthink. You are not here to become the advocates of Supreme Court. All right. Done with the first question. Let us go to the second question. Let us go to second question. Again, this is with respect to procedure, but यहाँ पे ना procedure, the one that involves states also. Consider the following statements. An amendment to Constitution of India can be initiated by an introduction of bill in Lok Sabha only. Again, this is wrong. देखो, powers of individual houses बोला था ना, important है. Does Lok Sabha has this power कि the constitutional amendment bill can be introduced in Lok Sabha only? Can it be introduced in House of People only? Can the process be initiated in House of Peoples only? नहीं. ठीक है, this power Lok Sabha does not have. ठीक है, this power basically Lok Sabha does not have. So first statement is incorrect. So you have to know individual powers of the houses. ज़्यादा नहीं. Whatever is written in your basic books. So individual power of the houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, with respect to amendment. Alright, with respect to amendment, that has to be known. Second statement, if such an amendment seeks to make changes in the federal character of the constitution, amendment also requires to be ratified by legislature of all the states in India. नहीं, half नहीं, sorry, not all the states, half of the states. ठीक है, यहाँ पे क्या है, what is the keyword over here? All the states in India. All the states नहीं, half of the states. ठीक है, half of the states. So what will happen is, if the constitutional amendment compromises with powers or federal characters of the state, compromises with powers of the state or federal character of India, so what will happen is the bill will go to the state assemblies. ठीक है, and state assemblies have to pass it with simple majority. If half of India's state assemblies pass it with simple majority, then what we say is the amendment bill is passed. All right, यहाँ पे वापस से what is in question, what is the focus? It is procedure. It is procedure. Difficult था क्या? बिल्कुल नहीं है. The only thing that you require is don't overthink. Don't overthink. Have a simple reading of procedure. Have a grasp over it. Use PYQs for the purpose of looking into what is important from the point of UPSC, and you will be there. 2 marks जेब में. Moving ahead. So answer यहाँ पे क्या है? D. Neither. Sorry. The answer over here will be D. Neither 1 nor 2. चलो. Now again coming to individual powers. ठीक है, individual powers. राज्यसभा हैज इक्वल पावर्स विथ लोकसभा इन, देखो राज्यसभा एंड लोकसभा ना पावर कंपैरिजन वंस यू डू नॉट ओनली फॉर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट but also for other types of questions, because these questions have been coming. These questions have been coming and again they are very simple. ठीक है, they will not take much of your time. So first option is matter of creating an all India service. Matter of creating an all India service, absolutely not. What we see over here is Rajya Sabha having upper hand. All right, then amending the constitution, absolutely. Procedure में ही है ना भाई, procedure में ही है. ठीक है, what is in the procedure? Both houses will pass the bill separately with special majority. There will be no joint sitting. If there was joint sitting, Lok Sabha will have an upper hand. Why Lok Sabha will have an upper hand with respect to joint sitting? First and foremost, the members of Lok Sabha are more than double than the members of Rajya Sabha. Obviously, therefore, numerical strength is with Lok Sabha. Presiding officer of joint sitting is speaker or deputy speaker. If these two are not present, then deputy chairman, but first preference to speaker and deputy speaker. Third, rules of procedure for joint sitting are the rules of procedure that are followed by Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha's rules of procedure are followed in joint sitting, right? So Lok Sabha has an upper hand with respect to joint sitting. तो constitutional amendment में तो joint sitting है ही नहीं ना. There is no provision for joint sitting in constitutional amendment. So in that case, what do we see? What do we see? Amending a constitution में both houses have equal power. In such questions ना, even if you have found the answer, what I will recommend is go through the other options also. Go basically through the other options also. It may be the case that C or D might be more correct. ठीक है, even when you see the paper of UPSC, now on the first page it is written, it may be the case that more than two answers will seem to be correct. You have to mark the most correct one. ठीक है, so C और D में से कोई ऐसा ऑप्शन हो सकता है. There might be an option basically which will be more correct. तो don't make this mistake कि directly mark the answer. Go through all the four options. तो यहाँ पे removal of the government, absolutely not. Removal of the government मतलब no confidence motion, and no confidence motion can only be brought in Lok Sabha. Cut motion, again, cut motion is something that can be brought in Lok Sabha. So our answer will be B. All right, moving on to the next question, my friends. Moving on to the next question. Now this question, again, what it does is, now this question is special, my dear friends. ठीक है, this question is basically special. The reason for that is what this question does is it asks, it is taken into consideration, it is basically taking into consideration the content of a particular, it is taking into consideration content of a particular constitutional amendment. All right. First it is asking about 44th amendment, then it is asking about 99th amendment. All right. It is a factual question. Okay, it is a factual question. And for factual information, now you have to, as I told you, you have to depend upon that source which is precise. Factual knowledge has to be precise. Otherwise, उसमें बह जाओगे. All right, तो fact file refer कर लो GS score का. Link is in description section, as I told you. So what are they basically targeting when it comes to particular amendment and provisions of that amendment? The 44th amendment to the Constitution of India introduced an article placing election of Prime Minister beyond judicial review. Nothing like that happened in 44th amendment. Okay, again, if you have read 5 provisions with respect to 44th amendment, those 5 provisions mean the world to you when it comes to 44th amendment. उससे ज़्यादा जाना ही नहीं है. Don't think कि शायद मैंने नहीं पढ़ा होगा. That शायद does not exist. That शायद does not exist. If what you have read, the factual information, the precise factual information that is provided to you in the fact file of amendments, if you have read that, तो ये शायद exist ही नहीं करता. ठीक है. Second, the Supreme Court of India struck down 99th amendment to the Constitution, 99th amendment to the Constitution of India as being violative to the independence of judiciary. Absolutely, absolutely. ठीक है. 99th amendment, what did it bring? National Judicial Accountability Commission. ठीक है, नेशनल जुडिशियल अकाउंटेबिलिटी कमीशन, which basically was trying to replace the collegium system. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला नेशनल जुडिशियल अपॉइंटमेंट्स कमीशन, what it does is it brings in the influence of executives on the judiciary and it compromises independence of judiciary. ठीक है, सिंपल सा चीज है, it is written down in the fact file also, बस इतना ही याद रखना है. ठीक है, with respect to important amendments ना, main provision you remember, more than half of your work will be done. And also remember, most of the amendments will carry only one or two important provision. It is only with respect to 42nd, 44th and also 7th amendment to a certain extent, 7th, 42nd and 44th amendment, that there are multiple provisions. Again, they are limited. ठीक है, again they are limited. So you don't need to, take the pressure of, you need not take the pressure of कि कितना याद रखना पड़ेगा. अरे बिल्कुल नहीं, specific information है, keep that in mind, and then what you have to do is you have to basically reproduce that information. If the statement falls within what you have read, so that is the answer, otherwise that is not the correct statement. बात खत्म हो गया. So यहाँ पे what do we see? What is the correct statement? 1 तो is incorrect, B. 2 only is the correct statement. 2 only is the correct statement. One more thing guys, this question also in a way looks into the power of Supreme Court. Power of Supreme Court when it comes to constitutional amendment. This question shows that Supreme Court can strike down a constitutional amendment passed by the parliament and given assent to by the president if it feels that it compromises with one of the basic features. यहाँ पे ना, in this case itself, what Supreme Court said was independence of judiciary is the basic feature of Indian Constitution. Basic structure doctrine के बारे में Supreme Court had reiterated. ठीक है, so this statement also showcases what type of power Supreme Court has with respect to constitutional amendment, and that you have to remember, because review by Supreme Court in a way it has become an extended part of the procedure of constitutional amendment. All right, moving on to the next question. Again, it refers to, in the second statement, it in a way refers to constitutional amendment provisions. With reference to Constitution of India, consider the following statements. First statement, no High Court shall have jurisdiction to declare any central law to be constitutionally invalid. Now this statement, even though it is not directly related to Constitution, but please remember, High Courts basically can declare a central law to be ultra virus to the Constitution, that is going beyond the scope of Constitution. We follow scheme of integrated judiciary. Like America, we do not have basically two separate sets of court, one looking only into central law and one other looking only into state law. ऐसा नहीं, ठीक है. तो High Courts basically do have power to consider the constitutionality of central laws. That is why High Courts and Supreme Courts are called constitutional courts in India. Second, an amendment to the Constitution of India cannot be called into question by the Supreme Court of India. This statement is directly, talking about role of Supreme Court in constitutional amendment. So Supreme Court does have role with respect to constitutional amendment. Article 13 does provide for something called as judicial review. Though judicial review itself is not defined, but the content of Article 13 gives judiciary the power of reviewing the laws passed by parliament with respect to the constitution. All right, laws passed by the parliament with respect to the constitution. Okay, now one more thing I'll like to just let you know with respect to constitutional amendments. To an extent have an inclination towards case laws also. Okay, for example, in Keshananda Bharti case, what did the Supreme Court say? Supreme Court said that Parliament basically can amend any part of the Constitution, including fundamental rights, but basically not the basic structure. Okay. And if you talk about this question, this particular statement specifically, so obviously with respect to amendment, in Minerva Mills case, the Supreme Court had pronounced that judicial review is part of the basic structure. ठीक है, इसके अलावा मेनका गांधी केस है with respect to constitution, that is not with respect to constitutional amendment directly, but to an extent it curtails the power of legislature also from the point of view of making law, which includes constitutional amendment also. ठीक है, पुत्तास्वामी वाला केस है, ठीक है, पुत्तास्वामी वाला केस है. तो with respect to constitutional amendment there are some important cases, try to remember those particular cases. ठीक है, those cases will ultimately fetch you marks. There is a possibility, if not the case law itself, then the content of case law will make a good statement for a particular question. For example, simple statement: Parliament can amend any part of the constitution other than fundamental rights. This is an incorrect statement, ठीक है, because this statement goes directly against the position of Supreme Court on the amending power of the Parliament. ठीक है, so at least know the latest idea of Parliament with respect to amendment procedure. All right, with respect to amendment procedure. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being part of this discussion. If there are any doubts, please write them down in the comment section. We will respond to them. Okay, and as I told you again, okay, go through yearly compilation of current affairs by GS Core. Description may you will find the link, and also fact file with respect to important amendments. Again, you will find the link of it in the description section. Thank you so much. Bye.